Ancestral wisdom. What is behind us? What is behind us? At one point in our ancestral line, there was a very deep connection with a knowing, a deep connection with the land, a deep connection with the stars, with the universe, a deep connection, just like the migrating birds, the knowing and a connection to source. And the gifts and the power of this knowledge and wisdom is behind us. So when there's a war or when there's colonialism, for example, there's an extraction from our gifts in the ancestral line behind us. There's an extraction from our power, our virtues. And when we're extracted from our virtues and you have a split in the system, a disconnect from God within us, source within us, this creates an opening in our veil in a way that we allow corruption, we allow abuse, sexual abuse, for example, alcohol, drugs, whatever, more in the mind. So it disconnects us from ourselves. So in these four webinars, what I want to do is first I want to release any distorted energies that got into the system and acknowledge they're there first. And to take this distorted, disconnecting energies out of the system, to restore the purity, to restore the gifts in the lineage we have, and that were there before these these disruptions in the system. So I'm going to work very deeply with any impact around if your ancestors experienced the ripple or the trauma of war, losing a home, for example, losing their land, losing loved ones. So all these injuries within the epigenetics is strong within us. So then we're going to have a survival energy, a fear-based energy. If it was the plague, for example, if there was an earthquake, a tsunami, it's going to be in our system because these type of epigenetic information is passed on generational and they influence the way we live our lives, the way we feel in our bodies, the way we feel in our relationships. For example, if war came in or communism, or if I'm Jewish, or Palestinian, I'm not going to trust foreigners. I'm not going to trust my neighbors, maybe, because maybe in communism, the neighbors were, calling or calling the police about you. So there was spying, there was traitors. So in the Irish blood, there's a lot of disconnect. The language was ripped away. So the dignity of the language, the dignity of the land, the food, the rights, the gifts. So it's like then another energy gets into the system and takes over. So I don't want to connect to my feelings. I don't want to feel myself because there's too much distortion behind. So for me, it's very important to clear these epigenetic memory fields, which disconnects us from our power, from our center, from being balanced, from being in life. So often we need the poison to awaken these fields, and that's happening if we watch the news, for example, if we see what's happening in social media, all these things will open up our system and be the poison to awaken these memory fields for healing or else to continue on these cycles. So it's an opportunity if you're feeling shaken or if you're feeling movement in your system. It means that these epigenetic memory fields have been awoken and they're awake because they're ready to be transformed. And what's behind you is beautiful. What's trying to be cleared or pushed into your system from the ancestors is all the trauma-based, which is in you, not just from there, but it's in your blood. So it's an opportunity to transform so you can reconnect with a healthy balance with your ancestors and you don't feel alone and you feel supported and you feel the support team behind you, not a pressure to run away from oneself, to dissociate from oneself. So this webinar, I'm going to be working with very ancient wisdom of how to do that. I'm also working with First Nations who've done this work and also who's trained me. So I'm going to work with this work very, very deeply and mix it with ancient work from other sites and other locations that I've been integrating over the years, so we can clear these echoes and to remember and feel safe in our bodies. Remember to connect to who we are. There's a part of us that knows we're loved. There's part of us that always knows we've been loved. There's part of us always been safe and knows that. The rest is distortion. And this is what I want to bring in this webinar. So we're going to work up. I invite you before the webinar to get to know a little bit of history about your ancestors as much as possible. Were they in the war? Maybe one side is from one part of the world, another one from another part, different religions, different backgrounds, different mindsets. Do a little bit of research, a little bit of journaling by asking your system, even asking your ancestors, bring me the traits forward, bring me the topics forward before I enter the field of the webinar. So I would invite you to ask maybe siblings or parents, or family members, what happened back there? Ask the question. Ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. What happened, with my grandpa? What happened with my grandma? Did they have a job? Were they involved in the war? What do we know about them? What do we know about not know about them? The simple question into the system will start responding, and the ancestors will start bringing up the vital, crucial information which is in the way of the support, which is for you and is directly from the ancestors and from God. I look forward to open this space for all of us for reconnection so we don't go into disconnection and create the same old in this new paradigm awakening at the moment. So we align back to ourselves and use this opportunity of the poison opening the system. And now that's the opportunity to integrate, ground, and become whole again and love yourself again and enjoy life. I invite you to be part of this beautiful awakening webinar, which will clear these ripples and then bring you back to center and balance. I'm looking forward to opening the space for everyone. Thank you for being part of this journey. Everything in the Academy is there for you, and they're all different stages of consciousness. So feel free to drop into the Academy and just something may pull you, something that may be a lot of resistance. Usually if there's a lot of resistance, it means there's a big breakthrough because your conditioning doesn't want to let go. I'd invite you to meditate and just scan the system and see what would call you in the Academy. Thank you.